I want to cover this idea of how we can use physics simulations to do animation for us rather than actually have to do the animation ourselves. Because everything I've talked about so far in terms of animating is you faking it. And that's fine. That's the way most animation's done. But to make that easier, almost every 3D program today has a system of dynamics in it. Dynamics are using those laws of physics, if you remember them from physics class with, you know, mass and kilograms and things rolling around on carts and things, and simulating them in 3D software so that you can get the same result. I'm going to show you a quick simulation, then I'm going to show you a more extended one involving hair, because hair itself, for it to move properly, needs to have physics to make that happen. I have nothing here but a sphere, and I'm just going to make it fall and bounce a bit. So let me put in something for it to bounce off of. I'll put in a grid. It's basically just a cube with 10 sections. Make it a little bit longer. And actually, this isn't a bad place to start, although, first off, I have to make them separate items. So let me select all the polygons in this item, and I will Control Exit, and I will make a new item over here and Control V it. And like in the video we just saw, you should name your stuff. We'll call this ball, like that. And if we go to Setup, this is where we set our center points. I'm going to go into Center Mode. The center point for that is fine. Let's see where the ball center point is. Down there, which is no good. We're going to move that center point, and we'll go into a head-on view. Oh, I hate it when it doesn't move. There it is. We'll put the ball center point right in the middle of the ball. We'll check it from different views. That's good. And now, I'm in the right place. I'm going to get back into item mode. I'm going to go into a perspective view like this, and we're going to talk about dynamics. When we're in setup, we have a bar over here that actually says dynamics right on it. And this is where it happens. Now, the thing that's going to be affected by physics is called our active, in this case, rigid body. And the things that are going to affect it are called static rigid bodies. So this is going to be an active rigid body that I want to have affected by gravity and hit things, and this is going to be a static rigid body. I don't want gravity to affect it, but I want it to be able to bounce against this other thing. Let me make sure we're in item mode again. And if you look over here on that ball, I have mesh, user channels, my normal stuff. I'm going to hit active rigid body, and I get a new tab here, dynamics, which we'll talk about momentarily, and I get something here called the solver. This is actually the physics engine that's going to make that all happen. Just to show you right now, these are the three buttons that show what dynamics will do. This one tries to figure it out in real time. And again, if you remember your high school physics, 9.8 meters per second squared acceleration rate. This, if we had the grid on here, I probably can turn on my, oh dear, I didn't want to do that. UV single. Which one am I, probably, you know what, why don't I try that and then try that. You know what, no, that's not going to do me. I'm just going to reset this layout since I think I messed up my layout. That's better. Let me go back over to layout, good. And we'll go back over here. And I have my grid back, good. If we were to watch this fall from here, and what are, these are 500 millimeters, so each of these is 2 meters, or each of these 2 grid squares is 1 meter. If we hit play down here, we're in layout, and I have to get that over there. You know what, let me be in setup. Yeah, that's where I want to be. If we hit play over here, this will meet that 9.8 meters per second squared, and we'll go faster and faster and faster, and we'll actually keep going forever because nothing's going to stop it. I have to put in something to stop it, which is going to be this other object here. Yeah. Good. This is going to become, under dynamics, a static rigid body. My only concern about this right here is that it stops this ball. I don't want it to actually be modified. So if we look at it right here, we do not have a dynamics thing in it. I hit static rigid body like that, and if that all works, it bounces, which isn't that impressive. Let's make it more so. I'm going to give myself more frames to work with here. We'll go 180. You know what? We'll go 360. Why not? And 360 over here. Good. Now, I want to look at some of the properties of these things. I'm going to start on the ball itself. If I go under dynamics, there's several things about it. One of the most important is this thing right here, the collision shape. There are some default shapes, and the fact is if I had an object like this, well actually let's say like this, which is a more complex object, I might not want to go through the trouble of figuring out all the physics and all the points of it, so I could default and say just put a box around this and make it pretend to fall based on the box, or just put a sphere. If I want to use the actual shape of the thing, I would have to go to mesh. In this case, it is a sphere, so I'm not that worried about it. Sphere will work fine. Let's go over here and check this thing. This has a collision shape of a hull, which is a curious shape. It could probably get away with box here too, which just means it would render quicker. Because it is a flat surface. When I get to a curved surface, we get into some different issues. We'll talk about those momentarily. Bounce. That's how much bounce this surface is going to have. Let's give it a bunch more and see how that affects us. It bounces a little bit more. Let's go to the ball. Rigid, dynamic. Let's give it a lot more bounce too. And now they both have a lot more bounce to them. Friction is how resistant it is to moving. On this flat surface, we won't get much happening that way. But let's say I tilt the surface slightly. I'm going to take the mesh here and I will rotate it just a couple degrees like that. And you see it's starting to roll? And it will eventually roll right off. And then it will keep traveling forever, and that won't be any good at all. And again, this is in place of actually animating it, which might be difficult. Well, would be difficult, but this is a very simple example of this stuff, okay? Let's go to a more complex one. I'm going to stop this playing here, and I'm going to go to this scene here, which is nothing more than a head from our pre-made stuff. Where is our pre-made stuff? Right here. Under our meshes, this is a pre-made free head they give you, amongst lots of other free stuff you have in here that you can mess around with. And I have done nothing more but then animated it doing that. Now, if you remember, last week we did a bit on hair. So let's put hair on this, and then we'll use physics to make that hair move around. That would be a much more difficult thing to animate. I'm going to go to paint to add the hair, because we're going to use guides to add this hair. Let me select the polys I want to put it on, and to make this easy, we'll go with a mohawk, just because it's there. And we'll go like this. This is where we want hair to grow from. I'm going to go under my hair tools. We're going to have our guides, create guides, and here's a bunch of important settings in our guides. These guides, which are going to say where the hair goes, they're made out of 2-point polygons. which is a funny idea. Two-point polygon is really a line, but these lines are connected one to the other to the other. Now, the more lines I have, the more movement the hair can have, the more hard it is for the computer to figure it out. I have 8 segments, meaning there'd be, I guess, 10 points in total, or basically 8 separate two-point polygons. I'm going to turn it to 12, and then I'm going to have it pop out there by clicking on the scene. I can control the length of it a bit here. Oh my God, that's way too long. We'll try something like that. And this is where the hair is going to be. Now, these are sculptable as like with hair tools. So I can put part of them one way, which I think I will do. Let's make sure they collide with their base surface too, so they do not bump into the actual head. I'm going to use the comb tool. You know what? I have to select them from over here. We're in polygon mode. Since these are polygons, you select them in the polygon mode, and we've selected all of these two-point polygons now. Although, what's funny in this case is I really just want to select these ones. So I want those to go one way. So let's select those. I will go to comb, and we'll push those down like that, let's say. Yeah, I sort of like that. And we'll take the other ones. I'll escape that and select all these ones, and we'll comb them the other way. Make sure I have the ones in the back. I'm missing one. And I'll deselect those polys. And a couple more here. Good. Now let's comb those the other direction. Like that. And actually, I should shrink that brush size. That's a little bit better. Good. So this is where his hair is going to start. Now I have to turn those hairs into actually dynamic objects. Let's select all of them. Like this. And we'll get these ones over here too. Good. And we'll go under Setup, and there's something here called Dynamic Curves as Hair. When I hit it with those selected, I now get a dynamic link in here, and you'll see it says curves. I'm going to play this just so you can see what happens. Now you see this is much harder to deal with from the get-go. It also has a problem that it goes through him, but we'll talk about that separately. I'm going to stop that because it's getting too hard to see, and we'll modify a couple things about it. Let's go into Force, and let's turn off Affected by Gravity. That means the hair will no longer be affected by gravity. Now if we play it, it will take about a second or two to get up to here, but I can actually see that the reaction time is too slow to see what's going on, so I have to do what's called caching the simulation. You see it's jumping everywhere. I'm going to stop that and hit this button here. This will capture a bunch of simulation, then let me see it. I'm going to hit OK. It will take a bit to simulate it. And I can stop the simulation at any time and see how much it has. I might stop at about 30% through. As you see, even with just 12 links on those hairs, this becomes a much more complicated thing than the ball falling, which could react a lot more quickly. I'll say that's about enough. And now when I scrub, we get that going on. And this is the gravity-less version of this. Let me let more of that simulate. And I'm not saying I like it, but let's just say we do for this example. Then I'll show you how we put hair on it, and you can get the whole reaction mixing together. These simulations can get very complicated. If you remember, I made that flying logo with the shattering lens. That took like a good 10 or 15 minutes to properly store all the data on the actual simulation. You also, though we won't address it in this video, you also can simulate soft bodies, which are things like cloth and things like capes, drapes, things like that, which we will look at in a different video. Good. Now I should be able to scrub through 180 frames of hair going back and forth. See that? Now I'm going to use that to simulate actual hair so we can see what it looks like. There's a lot of other controls in this. Again, if I didn't like it, I could lessen the amount it bounces. You know, well, I don't feel like resimulating it, so I won't lessen the amount it bounces right now. But there's a number of other settings in here. Linear damping, which is how much it will try to stop itself as it moves. I'm going to say that I like that, and I'm going to assign a shader to it. We have to go in here and we got to get back to polys, so we got to select the polygons that have the hair on them. And actually, I probably should have done this earlier, but whatever. They also have tools so you can change the color of these polys. Or I should say of these hairs. Let's get those last. There, we'll get that up there. And I think that's the section I want. I have some of those hairs selected. I don't think that'll be a problem, but we'll find out very quickly. I'm going to call that a texture first, which means I really want to deselect those hairs, so I'm going to do that because I don't want to get the wrong thing. And again, remember, these are just guide hairs. These are going to tell the other hairs what to do, of which there'll be many thousands, we hope. Oh, we'll get that last one there. Good. I'm going to hit N. Control Z. I'm not going to hit N. I'm going to hit M, and I'm going to call this Mohawk. Now those polys will have that, and I should now be able to go to our render preset browser. I'll grab one of the hairs in the hair guide range. We'll pick black hair. Yes. Good. Okay. Now, we have hair on there, but the hair is not responding to our actual animation yet. I have to select the hairs now. Where are we here? We'll go back here to setup. And you'll see it's showing me the OpenGL hair, which is good. Let me select all of our actual hairs. There are ways to make sets of these hairs too, so they're quicker and easier to select. And let me head back to render. And let me reapply that to those. There we go. Okay. Now, and that's the default out of the box what we get. But we should be able to jump to any frame in this, and we would get what those hairs are doing as they shake around. See that? So I'd have to render this out at this point to get to see the thing. And obviously, I'd also have to mess with all of the hair settings. We talked about those last week, but the, you know where it's going to be here? It's going to be in here, I bet. This, I bet you, is going to be the number of hairs. Black hair smooth. Shader. I'm looking for is here. I don't like cylinders, I prefer strips. Let me see if that's going to do it differently. Yes. And the maximum number of segments, they seem kind of broken up. I'll increase that. We'll go, you know what, let me see what happens when I decrease it, if it renders faster. They might be broken up like this because I only have 12 pieces on the hair, but I could turn that into 24 pieces, which would make it go longer. And I can certainly increase the number of hairs. We'll go to 0.5 millimeters. And this will take longer, but should put in more fine hair. And actually, it even bends better when I look at it that way. And again, I can play with the other settings on this. If we go over here, we should see some simulation of those hairs. See how it has the black hairs now? Those are supposed to show me what it actually looks like when it goes, so I could play that back and get a better idea, but I would have to render it out to see it. Okay? Okay. I'm going to